Good evening and welcome everyone to this meeting of the Housing Scrutiny Commission. My name is Councillor Helen Benavides and I am the Commission Chair. Before we start the meeting, I have a few housekeeping announcements to make. There are no planned fire alarm tests this evening. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave by the nearest fire exit and make your way to the agreed assembly point, which is at St. John's Churchyard off Druid Street. Council security staff will be available to direct you. The public toilets are located off the main reception area. Please switch your mobile phone to silence whistlist in the meeting room, and please keep it far from the microphone as it causes interference. This meeting is being live streamed to the Southwark Council YouTube channel. A recording of the meeting will also be available on the YouTube after the meeting has ended. Members of the public are welcome to film, audio record, photograph, or post the public proceedings of the meeting. Please be considerate towards other people in the room and take care not to disturb the proceedings. If you are filming the meeting, please do not film the audience. A copy of the Council's protocol for reporting and filming is available on the Southwark website. The Council's free internet is called Southwark Free Wi-Fi and does not need a password. May I remind members to raise your hand if you wish to speak, and please wait until I have given you permission to speak by contributing. When you speak, please use the microphone. Please can I ask members to keep their comments and or questions concise and specific to the agenda item being discussed. And finally, please can I ask participants and observers to be respectful at all times. Item 1, apologies. I have received apologies from co-opted member Brendan O'Brien. Are there any more? And now the confirmation of voting members. Would voting members please show your hand or respond verbally when I call your name? Councillor Pascal Mitchell, Vice Chair. Councillor Andy Bates. Councillor Stephanie Cryan. Yeah. Councillor Felix Hammer. Yeah. Councillor Lee Richmond. Aye. And Councillor Janice White. And now, no non-voting members. Would no voting members please show your hand or respond verbally when I call your name? Andrew Eck. Ina Negoita. Thank you. And now on to item 2. Notification of any items of business which the Chair deems urgent. There are no urgent items of businesses to be added. Item 3, disclosure of interests and dispensations. Does any member wish to declare any interests or dispensations in respect of any item or business to be considered at this meeting? Thank you. And now, item 4, minutes. Please note the minutes of the meeting held on 5th February 2026 and contained in the agenda pack, pages 1 to 8. Item 5. Progress on the Good Landlord Plan. The Commission has received the report, Good Landlord Plan Progress Update, noting the plan status and progress. Thank you, officers, for your work on that. Please find the report in the agenda pack, pages 9 to 38. There is also a financial appendix to that report contained in supplemental agenda number 1. The report will be introduced by senior officers who I'd like to invite to come forwards. I'd also like to invite the executive member for Council Homes, Councillor Popola, forwards, as he will have an opportunity to add comments and to communicate the administration's priorities. Following officers and Councillor Popola, we will then take questions from Commission members. Thank you. Please, could you introduce yourselves and then start as you wish? Thank you.
Evening, I'm Candida Thompson. I'm Director of Housing Needs and Support.
Hi, I'm Councillor Reginald Popular. I am the Executive Member for Council Homes.
Hakim Oshinaki, Strategic Director, Housing.
Ryan Collymore, Director of Repairs and Maintenance.
Evening, Dominic Kane, Director, Customer and Exchequer.
Cheers, Sharon. Thank you so much for inviting us to this meeting. I wanted to open up, of course, to highlight the new administration's priorities. So first and foremost, Southwark Council does a lot of things, and they do a lot of fantastic things. But I do believe that one of the most important things that this council does is being a landlord. And we know, and we've heard this both more experienced councillors and new councillors, that we could be doing a lot more, and that is the reason as to why the Good Landlord Plan was created in late 2024. In a response from the regulator of social housing that we must do better. And we know that it is not only just a regulatory thing, but being a good landlord affects the 55,000 households that are currently under our purview right now. A lot more needs to fundamentally be done, and the administration run by both the Greens and Lib Dems are putting this at the heart of the work that we do right now. So I want to highlight three major things that this joint administration will be focusing on in terms of housing. First and foremost, we know that repairs is a massive problem. We know that repairs needs far greater improvement in the fact that when a person does contact the contact centre, that we get the information right first time, we get the operative out first time, and we get the work done first time around. We we know that unfortunately the experience of many of our residents that for even a minor piece of work, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate outings have to be conducted before repairs are subsequently done. That is far, far, far too much and far, far, far too long. That is falling below the standards that Southwark residents deserve. So I am working extremely closely with senior officers to ensure that when repairs are raised, that they are done right first time. To respect the fact that if repairs are dragged on for a very long time, we know the human cost that can ultimately have. But also, there's a financial cost. If repairs are not done right, it has a significant financial implication on the council. You know, we are going through very difficult financial times right now. We need to ensure that we get repairs done right first time, and we're also being financially prudent as well. The next one is ensuring that we get the number of voids down. Voids in Southwark has been far too high, and I have made it extremely clear to senior officers that this ultimately needs to come down. A void strategy is being created and numbers are going in the right direction, and I am very happy to speak in more detail when the strategy is completed and coming back to this commission to talk about that and the progress that is also being made. We are currently going through a housing crisis, and now I'm not saying that if we sort out all of our voids, the housing crisis in the borough will be sorted. No, but it will make a significant dent to the housing crisis right now. But it's also an environmental point as well, in the fact that it is an absolute crime that there are credible empty homes under the council's purview that are not being occupied by families that are stuck in temporary accommodation, unsanitary accommodation, and nowhere truly to call a place a home. That needs to be dealt with, and I'm so glad that this administration is focusing on that. And lastly, we need to ensure that we start to rebuild trust again with our residents, you know, both tenants and leaseholders. You know, I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of, you know, events gone by, but when this administration was created and voted in by residents of Southwark, they voted for change, but they also voted for a reset in the relationship between the council being a landlord and them as residents. We are going to ensure that every step of the way we are working hand in hand with tenants and leaseholders to ensure that the policies that we create and the outcomes that flow from that are done jointly with them. That is working with residents and leaseholders, that's working with, you know, fantastic organisations like SGTO and the TRAs, and also ensuring that engagement and consultation is truly genuine, as opposed to a tick box exercise. Now, look, I'm not going to stand here and say that in these 4 years things are going to magically be fixed. We are going to be the greatest landlord that the world has ever known, and that I will magically solve the financial situation that is currently going on right now. But what I can tell you is that we know the problems, we are identifying the problems, the officers know the priorities of this administration, and we are going to be working day and night to ensure that we aren't only just a good landlord, but we are a fantastic landlord. And I hope that I can work collaboratively with members of this commission to ensure that that occurs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paula, and thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members of the Commission, and thank you for asking for this report and giving us the opportunity to introduce it. There isn't very much for me to say, because my colleagues are going to give a summary of their individual areas. But just generally to say, you know, that as Councillor Popola said, we recognize that what Southwark is best known for is being a landlord, and we accept this responsibility to make sure that we listen to our residents, and we be for them the type of landlord that they request of us and they desire and deserve. A lot has happened since this plan was created. Progress has been made. As the report said, we were graded a C3, and in fact, we were told at the time that we were on the border of C3 to C4, and we were on the threat of relegation to C4, as you might say. But now our discussions with the regulator is about moving to C2, which is an indication of good progress. On the tenants side, or rather residents, I should say, because both tenants and leaseholders, we carry out tenant satisfaction measures survey every year, and for 3 years running now, progress has been made in terms of the way that residents see our services improving. That's not to say, that everything is good, and we're a good landlord yet. Because if you heard the 3 priorities from Councillor Popola, it would make it clear, that we haven't gotten it right for repairs, and we haven't gotten it right for voids, and there are other things that we haven't gotten it right for. So we're on a journey on this. But what I want to assure you is the commitment for us to become a good landlord. We're in no doubt what we need to do about this, and we want to make sure that all of the actions we take are in conjunction with our residents, so that at the end of it, they feel a part of it, they feel a part of decision making, and they own it jointly with officers. So now I'll invite colleagues individually to just give a summary of progress on their areas. Thank you, Chair.
Hello, Chair, and everyone. I'll start with the Better Estate. So the Better Estate program is focused on improving the standard of our estate and overall resident experience. Some of the key progress we've made include the redesigning of the estate inspection process, and we had a focus group with residents and stakeholders. So we had stakeholder and resident engagement around that. We're now trialing the digital solution ahead of implementation in October 2026. Estate surgeries is ongoing. We've now rolled this into street properties and infill blocks. So residents now have regular opportunities to engage directly face-to-face with housing staff. Work is progressing to tackle environmental issues through the waste on estate programs. We've developed new data and reporting tools, including Fix My Street, which we already have, but officers are now using it, and we're getting data from that to target the resources we have. A program of inspections and repairs is on the way to improve the safety and accessibility of our estate play areas. We do get a lot of queries and complaints around that, so pleased to report on that. Estates ASB management on our estate is also another area, but we're progressing the improved way of dealing with and social behavior. Assurance arrangement have strengthened through the implementation of the revised ASB procedure. We now have enhanced oversight and ongoing reviews of risk assessment processes and system coding. We have a monthly case audit and regular deep sampling through the complex case review panel to continue to provide the reassurance around compliance and quality of the case management. A key message from our residents is the need to address communal repairs. Ryan, we talk about better repairs, but that's linked to better estate. It remains a significant area of focus, and we're putting additional resources in to reduce and clear the estate communal repair issues that we have. The priority for us through October is to ensure that we continue to work with colleagues We're embedding the improved monitoring system. We're progressing the waste and environmental improvement that we've made. We'll complete the play area works that is ongoing and ensure that residents continue to shape the improvement through the ongoing engagement and consultation. For stronger voice, significant progress has been made in strengthening how we engage with our residents and how residents influence our services. A new focus for us this financial year is on accountability, transparency, and demonstrating how resident feedback shape our service and decision making. The implementation of the resident engagement strategy that was approved in December is ongoing, working. We've continued to work at pace. The first cycle of all the 5 resident boards, we've had the meetings. Participation has been strong, attendance has been strong. The board members are going through a structured training program to ensure that we equip them to have the skills and the confidence to scrutinize our services, to challenge our performance, and also to hold us to account so that they can contribute effectively to strategic decision making. Looking ahead, we're going to have a new resident advisory panel, which will strengthen how resident influence us at a more strategic level. Alongside that, we're making improvement to, you said, we did feedback so that we can close that communication feedback loop. While there is more work to do, you see from the report that a lot of work has already started. Our focus over the coming year will be on improving participation. There are areas where we need to improve participation, including the local housing forums. We also want to improve accountability and ensuring that residents can clearly see how their views shape the services and decisions for landlord services.
Hi. So my 2 sections really that I wanted to speak about are better homes and better repairs. As you'll see from the report, the better homes section shows strong progress in our compliance metrics. And I think all have improved barring one from last year March to this year March. And we continue to press on with that. One of the main issues we have to getting compliant is no access. So we've set up a dedicated no access project, and that's now underway to improve our data recording, to understand the barriers and redesign escalation processes to improve resident communications. And that's just to ensure that residents understand why we're trying to get into their properties to do these very important checks. We're continuing to make progress on the electrical testing. At the end of the year, we're at 85%, we're now at 88%. So we're gradually creeping up to the 100% where we all want to get. Stock condition survey program has exceeded the initial 20% target with over 8,000 homes surveyed and coming back with an estimated decency rate of roughly around 92%, which is very different from what we've been reporting in the past. And this is all to inform our council housing investment strategy, which we intend to go to the executive in December. Let's move on to repairs. Not discounting what Councillor Papula and Hakeem have spoken about previously. There have been some slight improvements in the repairs service, and that's shown in TSN, but also shown in some of our KPIs. But we're nowhere near where we need to be. We need to do better with our emergency repairs and our non-emergency repairs to improve performance there. We need to improve our communication as well with our residents. We need to improve residents' experience. That remains a priority for us. We're doing a detailed analysis on the response repairs operations model moving forward. And we also need to make the service more efficient through better planning and systems. Work is underway on our workforce plan and our new operating model, which will see us mirror landlord services 3 areas. And we hope that's going to make us work more collegiately with landlord services and provide a more of a window for residents to come and see us and speak to us as well. We've also spoken about voids. There is a voids improvement program. On its way now. It's actually happening. We have started to reduce the number of voids that we have, but there's still a long way to go. But Councillor Papula is definitely driving that message forward to the team to get those reduced. So there is an improvement plan. You will start to see improvements as we go through the year. We've also got the repairs policy, which was really out to outline our service standards for our residents, so there's a clear understanding of what our responsibilities are, what their responsibilities are, and what they can expect from us. This is out for consultation with residents at the moment and will be at the September executive. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to better customer service progress, it's in between myself and Candida, who'll pick up some of that as well. Just to say, in terms of, I sit within the Resources Directorate, but very much am held to account through housing colleagues and sits as part of the Good Landlord Plan overall governance structure. So two key areas, well, three key areas, but two that I want to discuss, and they're in the report today. So stage 2 progress on complaints. So we're not where we need to be in terms of progress on stage 2. So we've got, a significant number of overdues. However, in terms of the information that I can tell the Commission tonight, good progress has been made on reducing the number of overdue stage 2 complaints. So some excellent work with colleagues within housing to reduce the number of stage 1 complaints outstanding. Obviously, as part of that, that can have a knock-on effect on the number of stage 2s that we get. And by the very nature of stage 2 complaints, they can be incredibly detailed. So we're keen that we respond fully, of course, to the detail that sits within the complaints, and they can sometimes take some time. However, good progress has been made. We've reduced to 150 overdues. Obviously, we'd want that to come down to 0. Currently, the progress was anticipated to be cleared by July. We're anticipating that will be closer to September, but progress has been made. Secondly, the contact centres. So through our resident experience programme plan, we've seen some good progress against some of the steps that we put in place to address some of the issues that have been discussed already this evening. So across the contact centre, we've got a new training and development partner. We'll start to roll out new customer service experience training to all of our operatives that sit within the contact centre. There's lots of good work around ensuring we've got good communication with our repairs teams, and picking up on some of the points that Councillor Papula made around ensuring that we diagnose repairs at the first point of contact correctly. Lots of work around better diagnosis to ensure that we get that right first time. So huge focus on quality assurance and quality improvement, as well as looking at some of those technical solutions to enable us to do that better. Obviously, it's sometimes, it's not an easy process to go through. We've got multiple contractors, we've got multiple types of repairs to determine at the first point of contact. So we're working as best to ensure that we enable our customer service operatives with the right tools at the first point of contact to enable that to happen better. So lots of work around that. I'm sure that the work that we're doing with the training will help enable our staff to ensure that we've got excellent customer service, whether that's empathy, understanding of the issue, and ensuring that technically they're able to answer the issue right first time. Secondly, sorry, I just want to add on to that. I know there's some information that sits within the report around home ownership. So we put our service charges online for the first time last year. So progress against that, we've had 2,000, it's not in the report, but we've had 2,000 separate instances of people accessing their online service charges, which is great progress against what was sometimes quite a process for staff have to go through, and for residents themselves contacting the council to receive information in relation to their service charges. So I think that is a positive improvement. Of course, there's more that we can do to improve that going forward, but incremental steps heading in the right direction. Apart from that, so in terms of performance on the contact centre, overall, we're seeing improved performance. So over the last quarter, April to June, average waiting time is just over 2 minutes. Now, I fully appreciate that sometimes if a resident can call on a Monday morning, they won't experience 2 minutes waiting time. That can be extended. What we have to do as a service is ensure that we get our resources placed in the contact centre at the right time, and that we're looking at different ways to approach that through flexible contracts, etc., to ensure that we're resourced appropriately. But I think good progress has been made to ensure that we've got stability within the service, to ensure that residents, where possible, can get through in a reasonable amount of time within the contact centre. And we take 240,000 calls per year just on repairs. It's a large-scale service, requires effective management to ensure that we answer residents' inquiries at the first point of contact in a reasonable amount of time. But good progress, more stable performance, and of course some of the work that we're doing, I mentioned earlier, around better engagement with repairs, is seeing improvements on a daily basis. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just pick up on a couple of other things in the better customer service pillar, so to speak. So obviously complaints was one of the things that the regulator pointed as a point of failure for us, and it was around mainly around our timeliness in responding, but also the way that we the information that we gave to residents and how we used and learnt from those complaints. So in the Good Landlord Plan, we committed to turning around our stage 1 complaints response times and learning from complaints. So just to give you an example of the progress there, our high point of our complaints backlog for stage 1 complaints was in May 2025, and we had over 740 complaints in the backlog. We reduced that to 0 in September 2025, and we've maintained that since. With regards to the response times, the average response time, our high was June 2025, when we were at 32 days, and again we reduced that in September to 10 days, which is the target time, and we've maintained that. So with regards to that, maintaining that those response times and ensuring that we don't have a backlog, we've had a consistent sort of performance in that, which is good and has enabled us to then kind of concentrate on some of the further developments that we need to do about improving the quality of our complaints, and then a quality assurance framework that looks at trends, root cause analysis, reasons for escalations, and kind of the feedback loop to the services to improve service improvement. So we've embedded now a quality assurance framework. There's regular reporting cycles on that and feedback to the teams involved, and it feeds into our housing improvement programme. We're working, as Dominic mentioned, we're working very closely with him about how we address some of those issues that lead to escalations to stage 2 and kind of contribute to that backlog there. And we're doing a joint kind of review of the casework management system at the moment to look at how we track and monitor resolution to complaints and recommendations that come out of those complaints and actions to make sure that they're being done, so stage 1s don't get escalated to stage 2. So that's a big bit of work at the moment. Just another thing to mention in the Good Landlord Plan under customer services, which kind of sometimes gets lost, I think, so just to highlight it, is our improved access that we committed to for people who are experiencing threat of homelessness or homelessness. So one of the commitments that we made in the Good Landlord Plan was to open the doors of Bournemouth Road to drop-ins for people. We did that in November 2025, and we've seen a lot of throughput into that service. And being able to give people kind of advice on homelessness as they sort of come in, rather than them having to sort of make an appointment to a closed door. That was one of the things that we committed to, and also extending our homelessness outreach or service and advice to other localities outside of Bournemouth Road. So, for example, we operate through 2 family hubs now, which are in Peckham and Bermondsey, where we've identified that a large majority of our homelessness approaches come from. So we're sort of working with social care to kind of meet those people early on and sort of assist them. And we're looking at expanding that that sort of model out in the community. So I think the only other thing to mention, it doesn't come under the customer service pillar, but it's a cross-cutting piece of work, which is that we are at the moment working through establishing a new governance, assurance and performance framework. So that's so that we just make sure that we establish clear structure, accountability, and kind of consistency in governance and reporting across the piece, and ensure that sort of externally and internally we're sort of consistent, clear, and accountable. And our performance framework is also sort of aligning regulatory requirements, residents' priorities, and our outcomes. So the setting up of the resident advisory panel that Abby mentioned is part of that, because something that came out previously that was residents didn't have enough opportunity to feed into that kind of more governance and strategic aspect of the council, and so this will allow a sort of resident-led scrutiny and sort of critical friend at that kind of level. So that's a kind of a big piece of work which helps us kind of gel all of this together and ensure that it's all reported and goes through the proper governance and assurance frameworks. So, thank you.
Chair, if I may continue to crave your indulgence, I can see that Commission members are itching to ask questions. I assure you, through this year, this will be the longest introduction you've ever had. Yeah, but it won't always be like this. But this is an important plan for the residents of Southwark, and we need to do it justice. Hence, the longer introduction. But just the final pillar on the good landlord plan is about new homes. And just to say, that we have, done very well in this. We have built, by the time we complete the current homes on site, we would have built just around 3,000 new homes. And no local authority in this country has built more. So well done to that. But the reality is, going forward, because of all of the issues that Commission members would know and members of the public would know in terms of the cost of construction and the borrowing rate, we are now looking at doing council homes in a different way, i.e. working in partnership with developers. And we want to concentrate on estate renewal, where we have a number of estates where we're doing work at the moment, where the homes are, have been built a long time ago. They don't necessarily meet the current building safety regulations, and we need to do something about them. An example is the Aylesbury. We've demolished Maydew House in Abbeyfield. We're working on the Ledbury. We're also working on Tostin. So our concentration going forward would be about estate renewal. So thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, officers. Thank you, Councillor Popola. I would now like to invite the Commission members to ask questions. Please remember to press the microphone button once when you start speaking and again when you finish.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you everyone for that really informative, sort of very long introduction, but much, as you said, Keane, much needed. I've got lots of questions, but I won't ask them all now. I'll come back for another round. But I do want to start on with the finances, and I think Clive's financial concurrent lays it out really starkly, doesn't it? Around to achieve all of this in this plan is going to be near on impossible under the current restraints of the housing revenue account around that. So I do have some concerns around the known unknowns, if that makes sense, like what comes out of a stock condition survey. What if we get another Marie Curie or another Ledbury around that? Can the HRA sustain that and continue to do everything else that it needs to do around that? I think that's really important around that. Also today, MHCLG announced that the second stage of AWAB's law will come into effect from the 30th of November. Really would like some reassurance that the council are planned for that, are ready for that, but also what is the financial implication of that on the HRA, and does something what can't be done in the HRA if that happens, and if something happens on the stock condition survey. And the last thing on the finances, they all packaged up into one, is obviously there's been industrial action because the pay agreement, the DLO, Unite haven't accepted the pay agreement. What impact does that have on the HRA? Because obviously there'll be a backlog of repairs as a result of those, and there's no guarantee at the moment Unite are going to accept the pay claim, and there could potentially be other days of industrial action as well.
Thank you, Councillor Crine. I would not have expected less from you asking a finance question. The reality is the HRA is a ring-fenced account. The only money it can spend is money that we collect as rent and service charges. The council cannot subsidize it through the general fund, and therefore, as officers, we're responsible for managing how we spend that money in the right way. We've got statutory responsibilities, and then on top of that, we've got other responsibilities, including the desires of residents. But what is not negotiable is our statutory responsibilities. At the moment, what we're seeing from the stock condition survey, and Ryan will correct me if I'm wrong, we've done around 30% of all of our stock. And just to be clear, it's not 30% of one area or one type of stock. It's 30% of every type of property we own. So it's a really good view of the whole stock, the whole estate. And at the moment, it's saying to us that we're over 90% decent. The original data we had, said we were around 73% of decent homes, but the stock condition survey, which is actuality, somebody has been in the property and seen the condition of the property, is telling us that our homes are more decent than we originally thought. But that's not to say everything is hunky-dory, because we also have 194 high-rise buildings, and because of the building safety regulation and the new fire safety regulations, there is more to do around high-risk buildings, which are the same as high-rise buildings. And therefore, as we do tests on them, we're finding out things that we need to do. And because these are high buildings, those things don't come cheap. But the way the HRA works, it's like a piece of cake. If you cut a piece, basically what you have left is what you have left. And therefore, if we have to spend money fixing those high-rise buildings as we discover stuff, then we need to make sure that some other things that we would like to do, we can't do them. But what we want to be able to do is discuss all of these and agree them with residents and take them along the journey. We've got a board for major works, for example, where we will be able to take, to residents and help us in making decisions about priorities. What we won't ask them to do is prioritize kitchens and bathrooms over health and safety issues. But where we're satisfied that we're spending enough money on health and safety issues, but there's money left for other things, then we can talk to residents about prioritizing them. As I sit here, I have confidence that this plan, as we explained today, can be funded by the HRA. But Councillor Crine is right. Something may happen on the horizon, but when that happens, we have enough flexibility in our capital program to pause or stop some things in order to address any emergency. And the same goes for AWEB's law. We have a damper mold team who are dealing with our requirements or obligations under AWEB's law, and that's progressing well. We are expecting the additional requirements anyway, and we had been preparing for them. We're not 100%, and I don't think there are local authorities who are 100%, but I have confidence in where we are. We know where those gaps are, and we're working very hard to plug them. Finally, on the industrial action, I received notification today that there's been balloting, and the ballot is in favor of industrial action. We haven't been told when our colleagues might go on strike, but this is not something that is new to us. We have a plan. We have a plan anyway for many things that could happen in any of our services, and industrial action is one of them. And should colleagues decide to go on strike, we will continue to provide services to our residents the best we can.
Thank you very much. Now, the next is Councillor Andy Bates, please.
Thank you very much. I wanted to follow up on Councillor Cryan's line of questioning. So really pleased that Councillor Cryan's done pre-work on the report. So the first iteration of the report didn't kind of have an adequate financial concurrent. And my concern about this is that we're kind of promising extra services, we're promising improvements in processes and IT, which is great, but there's not explicitly what we're not going to do, where are we going to switch resources from. So key things are, we've learnt the hard way that if we under-resource partnering contracts, that just kind of escalates costs. So how are we going to properly resource client control? Other things like the new build's great, but if we kind of experience high cost of putting right defects in the new build, so how are we going to resource adequately doing handovers? As Councillor Pakula said, we need to adequately resource voids because one, it's kind of lost income, but also it escalates. It escalates emergency cost. So I'd personally like to see something that's a lot more kind of linked to finance, because if the plan's not resourced, it will exist on paper and it's not going to exist in reality. The final thing I wanted to say is that from this year to next year, there's a projected increase in our income of 3.2%. That feels kind of low to me because we've got rent certainty. The government have done a couple of useful things. So we've got rent certainty coming through. We've also got rent convergence coming through. So I would have expected to have seen a higher increase unless we're projecting lower rental or leaseholder income. So it's a specific question about the 3.2% increase. Right. Thanks for letting me ask a long question, Chair.
If I may, Chair, I'll start with the 3.2%. Councillor Bates, I agree with you entirely that 3.2% is not enough increase for the things we need to do. But rents are effectively set by central government. We're told that we can only set rent at a maximum of CPI plus 1%, which it turns out to be 3.2.
So, sorry, mine was a different question. So because of rent convergence and rent certainty, I would have expected a higher increase in income.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, for this financial year, it's only 3.2% because the extra income that will come from rent convergence doesn't start until next year. It's £1 next year and then £2 thereafter.
It's 3.2% next year. So what I'm querying is that the 3.2% next year feels low to me.
Well, so the way the HRA works, all of the cost that we pay for, mainly staff, materials, and contracts, all of them increase every year through inflation. We increase staff salaries, the material people we order materials from, in their contracts there are inflationary increases, and for contractors there are inflationary increases. All of those increases are usually higher than rent increases, and therefore the gap widens every year. So whether it's this year or next year, Councillor Bates, it gets worse until the government decides to do something different when it comes to rents and how the HRA is managed generally across the country. And this is not a Southwark thing. This is a national issue. And Southwark has been campaigning, asking the government to do a number of things, including writing off the HRA debt that we were all lumbered with around 2012. So until then, in reality, HRAs will continue to struggle because apart from the inflationary increases I talked about, the burden, and I say burden, I use that word deliberately, on the HRA continues to increase. So, we now have a regulator for social housing that we didn't previously have. We have to pay a subscription to that. That subscription depends on how many properties you own. We own 55,000. So that's a lot of money. The building safety regulator didn't exist before, it exists now. We have to pay a subscription. That depends on how many high-rise buildings you own. We own the highest number of high-rise buildings in the country. The Housing Ombudsman charges a subscription. That's also on the number of homes you own. All of these payments, which are significant, the HRA never used to pay them a few years ago. And these are things that mean that we don't have that money to now invest in people's homes. But my job and the job of my colleagues here is to make sure that what we do have, we spend efficiently. And you asked the question about, what are we going to stop doing? What we did was to stop everything until we address all of the health and safety issues, because that is an absolute priority. So we concentrated spending our investment, our capital investment money on ensuring that our residents are safe, which is when we started to do the electrical testing to make sure that those things are done and done quickly. When we started the program in 2025, we had only 9% of our properties that had electrical testing. We now have almost 90%. So it's not about not stopping things. It's about ensuring that all of our statutory obligations are met first. And we've been concentrating on that, and we will continue to do so. Does that answer all your questions, Councillor Bates? Thank you.
Councillor Lake.
Thank you, Chair, and just also appreciate the questions that councillors Crine and Bates have asked. I think there's some good ambitions within this. I'm very grateful for the presentations and the introductions today. And what I think, and obviously completely appreciate the points that you've said. Compliance has to be, the health and safety has to be the number one priority, non-negotiable, I think, with the words you used. I think, following on from what Councillor Bates was saying as well, the things that are in the plan, things that you want to deliver between now and October, they do obviously have price tags attached to them, and what I haven't got an overly clear picture of is what that really looks like. We talk about improved ASB management, we talk about the tenancy order, the better audits, the better landlords offers, or the voice improvement staffing, new IT programs, and that's in addition to the points that were raised on the supplementary papers around decent homes, repairs and maintenance, other compliance and safety issues. So it'd be good to sort of have a kind of picture of what that looks like. And again, the kind of things that Councillor Bates was saying about, if we are going to be doing these things between now and October, only 3 months, where is the give in that? Also, particularly with the new IT programs that you've mentioned throughout the report, really, to assist with improvements. so just an idea of the kind of costing and a bit of what that might look like. I noticed within the report there's an increase in strategy staff, but there's no mention of any increase in frontline resources, and there is clearly more to be asked of staff around that, it appeared from the report. So I'd like to kind of get a picture of will there be enhanced frontline resources. And one thing that I did see that was missing, or thought I didn't see in the report, was around heat networks, new regulations, requirements, registrations, etc., and what kind of burden that might look like financially on the council. So that's just following from the finance side. So sorry, you can ask me if any of that wasn't clear.
They're all clear. Thank you, Councillor Richmond. It looks like my colleagues have left me today, so I shall continue very, very collegiate, but there you go. If it's in the plan, then it's funded. And you can quote me on this. We will not make a plan and worry, or make a plan and think that the funding might manufacture itself. But the reality is, because we're doing a stock condition survey and we're doing wall testing on all of our high-rise, medium-rise, and low-rise blocks, we may find things that we currently don't know, and that's a fact. But I recognize that. So it's a as Rums I think it was Rumsfeld said, yeah, it's a known unknown. Yeah. So I know that there are things we don't know, and because of that, we've created and will continue to create a capital investment plan that is flexible enough to move the money. Yeah, all of the contracts we're signing in terms of delivering stuff we're doing it in a way that we're not committing to a fixed amount in any year, because we can move our resources to something else. But again, I repeat myself: if it's in the plan, it is currently funded. A lot of the things that you have read in the plan are ongoing. Yeah, and that means that the directors are able to deliver them because they've accommodated them in their budgets. The final thing I would say on this, if there aren't any more questions on finance, is to say that's not to say that everything is rosy in the HRA, because the directors in the 4 directors in housing and colleagues across the council, including Dominic, have savings targets that they have to meet this year and next year. And those savings targets are baked in. They have to deliver them in order for us to make sure that we do these things that I've said to you. But they have confidence that they can deliver them, which is why we have confidence that we can continue to deliver the plans.
Councillor Felix Hammer.
My questions follow on from all 3 of my colleagues' questions, and just to pick up on what you just said. On this budget, it says that the baked-in. It talks about the baked-in savings that have been budgeted, and we're confident we could deliver them. And going back to Councillor Bates's question, what are those areas of savings? What are the things we're not going to be delivering? And then, further to the question by Councillor Cryan, I wanted to know, firstly, what proportion of spending is statutory at the moment, and is that expected to go down or go up? I presume it's going to go down if we've already achieved 90% of electrical testing, for example. And in terms of the decency rate, we've already discussed that it went from 70 to 92%, but we've only covered 20% of council housing stock. So is there a selection bias in that 20% that is allowing us to report a higher decency rate than is actually reflective of our pre-1940s council housing stock? Sorry, a few questions in there.
Just regarding the decency, so we had a decency level of 74% previously, but that was based on a stock condition survey from 2013. Yeah, and a lot of cloning of stock data. So currently, what we have now is we have 20%, or we now have 30% of stock data from every archetype that we have. Yeah. So there's still a cloning exercise, but we know the data is up to date and more in detail. So what that means is every year we're going to do 20% of our stock condition survey. So more and more we'll get more and more accurate figures. What we didn't want to do is know that we were doing the 20% and it's coming out at 92%. We didn't want to continue to report on the old data from 2013 because we believe that this data is a lot more accurate. Does that answer your question?
So you said across all archetypes, so you
Yes.
specifically chose a representative sample?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, across the whole borough.
thanks.
We are confident that it represents everything that we own. In terms of your question around savings, I mean, I can't give you now details of every single bit of savings target, but that can be shared with the Commission at a later date through colleagues in the team. But well, I was going to say I'm not sure what the Commission will do with that detail, but that's your prerogative. But we are happy to share it.
I think it's important for us to know the trajectory of certain aspects of housing over the next few years. Like a lot of, I see when I go and visit council estates, that you have been focusing on health and safety because lots of them haven't been painted in decades, for example. So I just want to know what the trajectory will be.
Perhaps thank you for that, because it puts more meat on the bone. So there are a number of things that we won't be able to do as we prioritize health and safety. So, for example, we've had to reduce our kitchens and bathrooms program. For example, we've had to reduce our communal decorating program. Because it is literally not possible for the HRA to do everything that needs doing at the same time. And because those things aren't statutory, and they don't affect people's health and safety. But in reality, the majority of the savings that we have are about efficiency rather than stopping something, are about doing things in a better way that makes sure we're not wasting money. And then there are areas where, by taking action, we're increasing our income, not by increasing rent. So, for example, if we address, as Councillor Popola said earlier, if we address our voice backlog, that will bring in more rent, and then it will save us money in other areas. So when you see the savings targets, you will see that it's a lot more about efficiency rather than a list of things that we're not going to do. Give you off the top of my head. I don't look at the HRA like that. Okay. Yeah, but that's not to say we can't calculate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pascal?
Hi, I'm going to give you a rest from finance because that's not my area. I'm about the human element, I'm about the people, and I'm about, looking at solutions and finding ways to, to be able to do the lick and paint, to be able to clean the dirt off, vents in windows. They're quite easy solutions, to clean the weeds out of the estates, bringing the community together and making sure that we're creating cohesion and we're creating a community where people want to live and people are happy, and we're looking after the environment. Council estates are full of wonderful people, and we need to mobilise those people, and we need to get those people living in estates that aren't in squalor. Basically, you know, housing is a human right. Housing is important. Everyone should have that safety. So, as a good landlord plan, we're looking at not just ourselves as Southwark, but we're also looking at how wider landlords are working. So we have a duty of care to all our residents, and currently on the St James's estate, there's a huge issue with the landlords there increasing the rents and evictions, and looking at doing works while residents are in there. This is going to have impact on us because we have a huge waiting list already, and it's going to increase the burden on our our residents sitting on waiting lists already. We need to. I wondered if Reggie could give us a quick update on that. I really enjoyed your presentations. Thank you for those. I'm really interested to know about the Voids programme and how that's going to be implemented, because again, it will give the opportunity for our residents who are on waiting lists to be able to have that nice home on our lovely council estates. And my thought process going forward till October is we need to just bring up think about if we were living on that estate, what would we want to be living in? Social housing, council housing, it's a really lovely place to be, and we just need to be making sure that's how our residents feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. First and foremost, I echo the fact that first and foremost we have loads of estates in the borough, but unfortunately we've been in a situation where unfortunately people truly can't take pride in their estates because they've not been maintained and kept up to a suitable standard, and I do hope that despite the quite tough financial headwinds that are coming on by, that we are able to raise those standards as much as we ultimately can, because as you quite rightly said, the human cost is significant. Housing is truly a human right, and that's something that needs to be at the forefront of the work that we carry out. Councillor Mitchell, you've asked for an update on the St James's estate. Of course, it doesn't necessarily cover our work in terms of a good landlord, but I'm very happy to provide a very brief update in terms of that, if that's all right, Chair. So last week I met with the Tenants and Residents Association. I met with ward councillors, including Councillor Bates, relevant officers, alongside Councillor David Watson, as well. In terms of this, first and foremost, even though the council may not be a landlord there, we still have a very important role preventing the horrible eviction of around 180 or so households there. First and foremost, we recognise the fact that the landlord, Freshview, is carrying out what I personally think is a very unfortunate state of affairs, where it seems like they are trying to remove a community that has been there for such a long time, a very diverse community, a place truly where people truly take pride in place, and they are trying to remove them primarily in the pursuit of profit. I can confirm that we are working very, very closely with officers across the council, not only the homelessness team, but we are also working with our enforcement team and our environmental team to pull every single lever that we can to ensure that those people who call St James's estate continue to call it home. They've been doing fantastic work there, and we are working hand in hand with them as much as we can. There are some very key deadlines that are upcoming right now, and we are continuing to work with them. And we've all a letter was distributed just I think either yesterday or today, outlining the work that the council has been doing, the continued support there, and I know that meetings have been fixed with the leader to speak with the residents and reassure them of the work that we are conducting there. And I'm very happy after this meeting, not necessarily to the commission but to councillors in general, just updating them of the hard work that we are doing over there. Thank you.
I'm just going to,
Thank you.
sorry.
Sorry.
Just going to come in on the voids question. So we've done a lot of work on the end-to-end voids process, and we've made some improvements to the processes in several areas. But we've also decided to reintroduce a one voids team that comes under one director. Luckily, it's me. So and we'll be looking at the key-to-key process that will sit with me. So everything in between. Getting the keys from the resident services officers and handing the keys to the lettings officer would be under my team, where we've got a number of issues where how we deal with key management once it's with my team, but also meter issues and issues with pest control and other areas like that. So we understand what the issues are. We've mapped out a process that allows us to bypass most of these issues and improve the service, and that's what we plan to do over the next few months.
Thank you. I saw Councillor Stephanie raised her hand, but we have Ina and Councillor White first. Okay, thank you. Please, Ina.
Just a quick question. Finance. Yeah, I have difficulty read so much text, and it's extraordinarily written document. However, is remarkable in lack of tangible detail of delivery. There are a couple, I picked up on Aylesbury Estate, there are a couple of notes. However, the overview of the status does not have enough detail. It was supposed to be about 3,000 homes. As far as I read from the latest documentation, is only about 800. 80 people that paid to check for 600 empty flats to a value about 630,000 as far as I know. And so far it was spent 346 million. So what would be the update? When is going to be finished to be delivered, and how much is going to be the total cost? It would be well appreciated. If you don't know the numbers, maybe after the meeting. There are two other estates which have not been mentioned, which is Solomon Passage. It seems that it has been demolished after only 10 years after it was built. So what security have you put in place that the new builds are not going to end in the same situation? Another one is Minderview House in Bermondsey, which, as far as I know, on the latest information, they have been empty for the past 10 years. And also the costing and the delivery would be highly appreciated. And definitely I would be interested in the 7.1 million savings list. I would appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ina. Your first question, is it about new homes? Oh, I see. So the council is quite public, as we should, as we're a public authority, on how much we have spent on new homes, and we have built over 3,000. There is a list of addresses in reality. I think the 800 you referred to are what is currently on site, rather than the totality of it. The money spent on building new homes comes from 4 sources. One, borrowing, which is a significant part of it, borrowing from the HRA. And then there is a grant, which comes from the GLA, the affordable housing grant. And then we have some right to buy receipts, and finally Section 106 receipts. A combination of or some or all of it is what we've used to build every single home that we've built, and you know those monies are accounted for every scheme. Now,
It
Solomon's
was more
Passage.
about value for money rather than money in themselves.
Well, the value for money will be determined by the people who live in those homes. At the end of the day, you know, I am very proud that this council has built 3,000 homes, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to what we really need. If we could build 300,000, we'll build it, to be honest with you. Because you know we have 23,000 households on the waiting list and over 4,000 households in temporary accommodation. If there was a time to be building council homes, it would be now. And every single person who lives in those homes, you know, would be glad, you know, that the council has built it for them to be able to live in it. You know, because not just moving from temporary accommodation, but there are people who are living in homes too large for them, paying bills that they don't need to pay, and are now living in, you know, in a smaller, newer accommodation that suits their needs. And then there are people who are overcrowded, you know, families with children who are living in, you know, 1 bed, 2 bed, even though they need a 4 bed or even larger sometimes. So I think the value is human, you know, rather than financial. And it's something that we will continue to do and we want to continue to do. Solomon's Passage and Maidavale House. Solomon's Passage is not owned by the council, and neither is Maidavale House, that have been empty for 10 years. We haven't built properties that have been empty for 10 years. And then the 7.1 million savings, I think I mentioned earlier, you know, that we will share with the Commission the breakdown of where the savings are going to come from. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Janice White.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for the reports and updates. Just to return briefly to voids and 2 questions, if I may. Councillor Papula mentioned at the beginning the human and financial cost of voids, and given the financial pressures within housing and the efficiencies that this potentially can make, how confident do you feel in bettering the deliverables that you've so far achieved, and what do you think are the main barriers? And then briefly to return to the question of residents, the report mentions the potential for resident engagement fatigue, and just wonder how you're proposing to manage that and to ensure a really wide range of voices are heard. Thank you.
Personally, I'm very confident that we can deliver the change that we need in the voids process to reduce the numbers of voids. And I think that's from having a clear understanding of where the issues are. I think it's a lot clearer than it has been. So, and we know what we need to do to fix it. So, and one of the things I spoke about is having that one team dealing with key to key, because what happens is when you have too many teams dealing with a void process, that's when things can go wrong. We also need to look at the systems that we use to record that data. So moving away from having separate trackers with different teams and possibly having one tracker or one system tracking all different aspects of the void pathway. So I'm very confident. I'm hoping Councillor Papula is as well.
Thank you, Ryan.
One of the things, the intent of the resident engagement strategy is to broaden the people who we engage with. I know it hasn't been popular in some areas, but one of the reasons we did it is so that residents don't get fatigued. So the board, for example, you can only be a member of one of the boards, which means that, you know, less meetings, and the resident, I think, will be able to give more as a result. There are outreach programs for young people, because that's one of the demographic that we're trying to target. There are, we do know that we need to do more to engage with young people, and other demographics where we have low participation. There is ongoing work around that, including offices door knocking in some areas where we have very low participation in meetings. We are also looking at making sure that the meetings are not just in person in the evenings, because that's not always convenient for people. Some of the focus groups that we've done them around people who may be working, so weekends and during the work hours and evenings, so that we vary the time. We'll continue to do that, and we have seen an increase for when we did the board induction and the 65 people came in. It was quite good to see that a large majority of them it was their first time of being a member of the any board within the council, or even engaging with the council. So we've widened the number of people that we engage with, and the diversity was clear to see too. We have quite a lot of young people. We have different demographics, and we'll continue working to get more people involved. That's one of the mitigations we have, so that people don't get fatigued. We're also working to strengthen the current structures that we have. We have been having different meetings with the various TRAs, different in the different areas, bringing them together, working with them on how they can engage more with the resident area. We're really keen to hear from more residents, because that would mean that we are engaging and really listening to our residents. At the moment, in some areas, participation is low, but there is ongoing work to improve that.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could just quickly jump in there, Chair, if that's completely fine. I feel like Abby does raise a very important point in the fact that I think during my time in terms of being a councillor, I know that participation, especially in the resident engagement structure, has been quite low, and I'm hopeful that this new strategy can go some way in trying to improve that. She also quite rightly mentioned the fact that from what I've seen, there is truly a lack of diversity in terms of age, in terms of race, in terms of those from the LGBTQ community. There is truly a lack of diversity in those spaces, and it's very difficult to be creating policy hand in hand with residents when there is a lack of diverse voices in those spaces. We are truly going to miss out on their valuable contributions when we are creating these things. I'm not saying that it's perfect, of course not, and you know, it's extremely good that there is a commitment to a review of the new structures as time goes on, but the overarching aim in terms of trying to engage more people, trying to engage diverse voices, and also just making it very clear that their thoughts are heard, that participation is truly genuine and impactful, is the main the main aspect of this. I said in my I said in my opening speech that we need to rebuild trust, and this is one aspect of rebuilding trust with our residents. It's been low for quite some time, and we truly do need to bring that up. It can't merely just be a talking shop. Participation in many of these forums are far too low, and also we have many estates that do not have tenants and resident associations, and I know that Abby's team is also working very hard to do the real grunt work of trying to get these tenants and resident associations going, because we know that a strong TRA is a strong voice for those on the estates, and also can challenge the council to ensure that we are truly a good landlord.
Now, Councillor Stephanie.
Thank you. I just got a couple of questions. So I was really pleased to hear about the commitment to new homes through the DPAs and through estate regeneration. I think, as it's been mentioned many times, there is a housing crisis, and because of financial constraints and build costs, and it's probably the only way we can start to get more council homes through for the time being. Also, really pleased to read in the report about the housing allocations policy. I think that's something the regulator did come down on us on, around the fact that actually it was a very outdated policy and it did need to change. But with that in mind, it'd be really helpful to know why have all the cabinet executive reports on estate regen, on DPAs and the housing allocations policy been pulled from the forward plan? They're not on there anymore. And I think in terms of a good landlord plan, it's a little bit worrying that things that were on the forward plan are no longer on there. So it'd be good to get that understanding. And then my final question actually is for Councillor Papula. So you've now got this brief. So for you, what does good look like? What will good look like in 1 year's time, and what will good look like at the end of your administration?
Cool. I will let the officer speak to the former, but in terms of me, what good will look like first and foremost in my first year is that voids are down significantly. I harped about during the campaign, but also just hearing from residents the amount of voids that we've had, long-term voids for quite some time, and I'm extremely aware that there were technical reasons as to why there were loads of voids. I'm not ignorant to that, nor should we be ignorant to these struggles, but ensuring that there is wholly one team dealing with this, ensuring that our processes are streamlined and the IT in the background is there, and also ensuring that the adequate resources are there, knowing that long term financially, ensuring that a home that is occupied is far more financially viable than an empty home that could get squatted in and could be in very poor condition, are very important things. It's also fantastic for the climate crisis that we have, and also the housing crisis that we have. So what good looks like to me, one aspect of it, of course, is ensuring that we get our voids down to a more manageable level, and also that we are hitting our voids targets long term as well. I believe it's 28 days for minor voids, and I think it's 100 for major voids. Of course, thank you for correcting me. But also as well, I think also in a year's time, it's also about ensuring that participation is truly genuine, that we have increased numbers of people coming to all of our meetings, not just the big meetings, but also ensuring that I'm going to a tenants and residents association, and it's not a two-man in a dog situation just waving through things, because there may be 100 people on the estate, but if only 2 people are speaking on behalf of the estate through a democratic structure, I don't think that's very democratic in nature. It's good that some level of resource is being put there, not only to create tenants and residents associations, but also ensure that we can grow the ones that we have there and that flows up. It's also a good thing, through this new structure that we have, that residents are at the very highest level and can truly scrutinise the decisions made by the council. Of course, this was a structure not created by the administration, but created by the former one. But all in all, I do believe that it is a very good structure, and that it does give power to residents that I think has been lacking for quite some time. So those are two things. Of course, there's a non-exhaustive list of fantastic things that I would want done in a year. But then at the end of this administration, I think, the most pertinent thing that I think experienced councillors and new councillors see in their casework is repairs. I do think it's frustrating when we get casework, people email in saying that very simple elements of repairs just haven't been carried out. When we are emailed about casework, it means that the system's not worked for them. I, in my own very selfish way, want to see less of those emails, because I know that the system is working and working well for people. I want to ensure that when we are that when people do contact the contact centre, that they are dealt with respectfully, appropriately, and their works are then carried out. I want to ensure that our estates are far cleaner than they currently are right now. Of course, you know, this all has a financial implication. I'm not ignorant to that, but you know, people do pay their rent. People should have a level of dignity, and we need to ensure that we can pull as many levers as we possibly can to ensure that's done, but also in ensuring that we are also truly a campaigning council. You know, we know that the HRA is in a very difficult situation, as you of course know, Councillor Crine, in your previous role. We, as Hakeem had mentioned, you know, there is a significant amount of HRA debt that the council had to take on in 2012. That being wiped out would help the HRA significantly in ensuring that we can truly invest for the future, as opposed to trying to every single day trying to wipe our faces and do the bare just trying to ensure that we are carrying out our statutory duties. And lastly, in 4 years' time, I want to ensure that we're in a situation where instead of being in C3, that we are beyond C3. You know, I know that sounds quite simple, but you know, we are starting at a very low ebb. Things are going in the right direction, but I would hope that in a number of years' time we can invite the regulator back once again, and they can see the fantastic work that officers not only here but across housing have done, and that we are awarded a far better rating than C3. Thank you. What was in terms of the forward plan? I can't speak to the other two, frankly, but I can speak about the allocation strategy. In terms of that, so effectively, I wanted more time to ensure that it focused primarily on need, and that's why I pulled it from the forward plan. But but it will be on the forward plan for September executive, and of course I'm going to ensure that I will be speaking to all members as to what the proposed plan is there. Thank you.
So can I just ask a technical question on that? Because it won't be able to go to September executive because August forward plan has just been published, so it'd have to already be on there. Sorry, I'm doing my constitutional hat on. And
it's on the forward plan.
It's not on the forward plan, okay? It's not. That's why I asked the question. It was taken off. And is it possible for Councillor Austin to just send us a reason why for the estate regeneration, the DPA ones, do you think? I know she couldn't make it tonight. So the appropriation rights for Seven Islands and for the one in Wyndham Road, and then there was also the phase 2, the Aylesbury one and the Tustin Estate one. They were on the forward plan for June. No,
July.
They disappeared off the forward
Correct.
plan.
So they were for July.
Yes.
A number of items that were on for July were moved to September.
They're not on it. They're not on there.
I will check. I'm surprised to hear that, because they have not been. When you said they were taken out, I was surprised to hear that. But they were moved to September.
They're not on the latest forward plan.
I will check with colleagues.
You know me, Hakeem. I check it.
I do. I will check with colleagues and make sure that is corrected.
Thank you very much. Now I have Councillor Lee and Andrew to talk, and then I will make a question as well, and then we go on a break. Okay? So.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief, and thank you, Councillor Papula, for that comprehensive about direction in which you want to go. And some interesting things there. I'm particularly interested. It's good that there's been such a focus today on voids and this position that we're in, and very grateful, Ryan, for your contribution, where you said you know where the issue is. You're looking for a whole key process, having one voids team in order to oversee that. That makes sense. I think from our point of view, it's great you know where the issues are. I think it would be quite good for this Commission to also have a clear idea what the issues are, what you've been seeing, and particularly perhaps around the number of voids, so that we can have a good, clear idea how many voids there are in the borough, kind of what status they might all be at. I'm not necessarily asking for answers today, but from my point of view, I would like this to be a continuing focus and discussion points for regular report backs for this commission, because I think it's such an important issue, and I think in so many ways it reflects the health of a housing organisation around a position of void. So grateful for that, Ryan, and the contribution there. But I think we'd like some information for this commission so that we can keep this under review as part of our work.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide that information at a later date, and happy to report regularly to the Commission. So if that can be put on the agenda, that's fine. Okay.
Now, Andrew, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start with just correcting a particular data on the supplementary agenda, page 1, paragraph 2, line 4. I just need somebody to correct something I saw on there. It says 8.25, and then you found 7.1, but the remaining 1.4. Where's the 250,000 from extra from? Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear. All right, so no, because the lawyer is there. He keeps telling everybody he's a lawyer, so I don't want him to kind of start. You know, as a former union rep, you know, I'm quite expensive. Okay, all right. First thing, so it seems the tone of the reports have changed in terms of it moved to a lot of generalities instead of the specifics that we used to get. So if you remember last few quarters, you know, especially Ryan was very good at telling us the percentage of stock condition survey that we will be getting at this stage, which should have already been over 60%. No. Wait, sorry, sir, because I reread some of them things. So I just wanted us to, because people were talking about projections and trajectories, I'd like us to go back to that, because it's very important that if we are meaning to work together, you know, and we need to know where we're going to be able to get to so that we can have transparency and accountability. I mean, if we can do that, we can, I'll be very grateful. The other thing for all of you, especially you, Akim, and Councillor Popola, is that I'd like us to also get away from talking about estates. We also have street properties. So if we mean, we need to look at that strategy of what we're talking about, getting the engagement. So if I look at you councillors, all of your constituency is not an estate. It's the whole catchment area. So let's kind of reflect that in our strategy, because we already do that as residence reps. I do that every day. So maybe we need to revisit that. It was there before. So maybe it's another thing you need to go and recalculate. Now, on voids, at last, thank you for bringing it back to where it should be. I don't know whether you were listening to us at Tenants Council, but thank you. You know, so because 2 years ago, somebody came to Tenants Conference and was shouting from the top of our voice that, yeah, we're celebrating coming down to 65 days from 80 days. Last year, it went back up a little bit. So let's get back to data. And I hope we're not going to be seeing 3 figures anymore. If we do, who should we hold to account?
Just yeah, please hold me to account. But just to be clear, because we are dealing with a backlog, the average number of days to complete is going to go up before it comes down. So it's going to kind of blur the figures. So what I probably like to be able to do is provide you with some figures from, let's just say, April this year, becoming void April this year, and then the turnaround time, just to show that if we've got the improvements that we need, the backlog is always going to lift the average numbers.
Okay. Finally, on the call center and the homeless strategy, could you please ask your staff to stop putting it on voicemail or cutting people off? Because we do have on the testing a diary of too many times when that's happened. You know, in the main, the call center staff are brilliant, right? But that habit, especially before, because this seemed to happen early hours, because it seems like whomever is on duty, their voicemail is full, or, because I've actually sat there, because we have this community phone that people can use, and sometimes we're listening to horrific incidents happening in people's homes because they're working from home. So that's not a good experience, because if that gets out, not just, I'm only raising it here because you mentioned something on the homeless strategy. I don't know how that's going to help the waiting list, the amount of waiting list that we've got, because in the end, everybody wants to bring that number down. If we don't have a clear strategy to tackle it, then again, who does the buck stop with?
Hi, can I just comment about the homelessness strategy? So the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy is separate from the Good Landlord Plan. And we have one that we published last year, a 5-year strategy with an action plan, which sets out all the activities that we're doing to tackle homelessness. So there is a strategy about that. What the reference previously was was the allocation scheme, which is about how we manage our waiting list for council housing, which is a separate scheme from that as well, although they are obviously related. But as Hakeem mentioned previously, there are far more people on the waiting list that are affected by our allocation scheme than our homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. But I just wanted to confirm we do have a homelessness and rough sleeping strategy and quite a thorough action plan about how we are tackling homelessness.
Sorry, point of information, Chair. So part of that allocation policy strategy you just mentioned is also decimated one of the reasons why tenants engage or put themselves forward too, because you removed some of the safeguards that actually allow them to feel fulfilled. One of them is the volunteer staff. So normally you have community reps able to input into that, but that's been taken out. So if you want people to actually continue engaging, you need to revisit that, because that was one of the things that wasn't consulted on. So you need to go back and double check on that. That's just point of information for you.
Okay, we haven't actually, you're talking about proposals under the new allocation scheme that hasn't actually been implemented. So just to note that. I take your point on board that you've said about the consultation. That's not my understanding of it, but I will take that on board and check.
But I mean, it is factual that the allocations policy hasn't been agreed yet, because it's meant to be on the forward plan for September for the executive to consider it. But the one of the primary goals of the proposed allocations policy is that it's based entirely on housing need, and the fact that somebody wishes to give up their time, to be consulted by the council or to be a board member or to attend forums does not suggest that they are in housing need. And there is a criticism that our current housing policy is riddled with things that do not actually reflect housing need. And therefore, the proposal is to correct all of that. There are much more incentives for people to want to engage with the council. that may not necessarily lead to them being rehoused quicker than somebody who is in true housing need.
Thank you very much. And I have a question for you as well. I heard a lot you talking about residents' engagement, to motivate them to create their own TRAs. Councillor Popola talked about resetting the relationship with the residents. I didn't hear about the people who deliver this strategy. You need people to deliver the strategy, and if they are not listening to the residents, if they are not engaging with the residents, maybe it's because they are not being listened as well. There is on page 21, item 168, you talk about the overstretched staff, capacity constraints, culture, and capacity. So if the people who is meant to deliver this strategy is feeling this way, I don't think we will achieve the objectives at the pace that we need. So I would like to hear from you. How do you feel the people who are delivering the strategy is feeling? What are their pain points? What are the things that you feel that we can do for them to feel more empowered to do their job as best as they can? And the other point is on page 18, you talk about rewarding specific people for engaging, to helping you to deliver the strategy. And I have an idea that I will suggest is to reward states, the most clean state. Do something like a competition to incentivize them to keep their state clean, for example. And they would celebrate and have a grant. We have 100,000 allocated for rewards. So I would like to hear if you think this could be a good idea as well. Thank you.
We could also have a competition about the estates that, or an area where they go, because we shouldn't use estates, and an area where they are the highest payers of their rent, for example. We could do that.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a good idea around clean estate. I know we used to have something similar a while ago, and it's true. People do take pride in things like that. So yes, thank you for that. I'll start from your last question. So the allocation of £100,000 for reward and recognition incentives, we pay £100 to volunteers who participate in the board meetings because we recognize that it's people's time and we want genuine engagement around this. We have to pay people for their time, and it's not just about attending the meetings. There will be briefing papers that people may need to read prior to the meetings. So yeah, we want to show appreciation for their time. That's why the 100,000 has been set aside for that. In relation to your comment around resident engagement, the page you mentioned, that is for all staff. I know that the first one is about resident engagement, but the issues raised is across the service. The resident engagement team, we had a restructure of the team in 2024. And you are quite right. I do agree that the team are not resourced for the volume of the meetings. For example, we have 124 active TRAs. A lot of them have monthly meetings. The expectation is for officers to attend. They also attend their AGMs to help them with elections. That's outside the tenant forum, the homeowners forum, the local housing forums. And the different focus groups. So for every improvement or procedure that we go through now, we go through focus groups, and we get a group of residents and we consult them on those things. So it's a lot of expectation on them. And apart from that, there is the additional requirement now to engage with more people, especially underrepresented groups, and to work with street properties and infill blocks to have more TRAs. So you're right. We have thought about increasing the number of officers. At the moment, we are going to be recruiting 2 more officers within the team to ensure that they have the capacity to cope with all the meetings. And the service is going to go through a service redesign, and part of that we'll be looking at that team and seeing what we need to do to improve the capacity within the team.
Just on this point, I'm glad to know that the residents are at the heart of this. But when I mentioned about the staff, it's not only about hiring more or increasing the capacity. It's about understanding them, listening to them, and helping them to deliver on the work they have to deliver now. That was my point.
I'll address that. So we recently had a resident away day. A team's away day, a service-wide away day. And you're right. One of the things that I mentioned, the increased capacity, because that's what officers have told us. So we asked the question. Councillor Popola attended, and it was really good. But we asked officers directly what the pain points are. We have a list of all the issues that they have raised. Part of it is also being more efficient in terms of how we service those meetings, digitalizing some of our processes. So there is ongoing work around that. But I mentioned increased capacity because it is one area where officers have told us that they're struggling.
Chair, just to also add to what Abid mentioned, as I've said, it's extremely important that we engage with our residents as much as we can, and that means that we need a workforce that is also equally as motivated to rise up to that task. And you've already heard that that there will be more staff hired to that and additional support around them, because we know ultimately that we need to be reaching out as much as we can and rebuilding that trust as much as we can. It was very good to go to the away day to truly hear from the staff themselves as to what their pain points are, what their struggles are, and already proactive steps on that. Well, not proactive because I heard them, reactive steps, and hopefully in future proactive steps will be taken to ensure that we have a workforce that is not only well-resourced but also well-motivated to the tasks over the next 4 years. And they're all lovely people. They actually care about their communities, and a lot of them do come from the area. That's ultimately what we need. I hope that working with officers here and officers across the entire board, but also working quite closely with ward councillors as well, that we can start to re-engage our residents again, because we need to hear their voices. Major changes are going to be coming, and their voices are desperately needed. So it is a slight plea that also ward councillors truly get involved with their local TRAs, get involved with talking to their residents to truly get them involved in those structures. Thank you.
I know you have a complex system full of contractors as well to deliver the repairs, because talk, they want to see action, their houses being repaired. So do you have any process to engage and align with all contractors so they are all part of the same team, or it's not really the case? How does it work?
Well, we have a direct labour organisation, so we try and put most of our work, for our responsive repairs work anyway, through our internal staff. But we do have some contractors, and we've got new contracts for voids that are coming on board shortly. And part of the mobilisation is that kind of induction to Southwark, explaining how we work and explaining what our expectations are of those contractors. And we have regular contract review meetings in other areas with our gas contractors, our heating and hot water contractors. So there is some engagement. We do have a lot of contractors that have worked with us for a number of years and do understand how we work and are happy to support us in that delivery moving forward. And any new contracts that we procure, we definitely outline what our expectations are as part of the tender package, actually.
Chair, if I may just add to what Councillor Popola and colleagues have said in terms of engagement. Yes, we have a resident engagement team, but resident engagement is through all officers. All officers that come in contact with residents in one way or another. And that includes people who visit residents in their homes, who email them or respond to their emails. An opportunity to engage, starts from every contact. And what we're doing in Candidate's team is finding a way, to ensure that all of the information we're hearing from residents are being, digested, and we're learning from it. And you made the point, a very good point, that if we don't listen to our staff, they may not be listening to residents. A lot of our staff are actually residents, and therefore it's important that we listen to them. Because they know the system internally, and then they know the issues on the outside. So it's important, and we've created structures to do that. We do staff surveys, for example, and we create action plan from the results of the survey to make sure that we're addressing the issues that staff have raised with us, generally, because we know that the morale of staff affects the quality of service delivery. So yes, we're doing both.
Thank you very much. Last question from Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that, is there a guideline for how RSOs are supposed to keep the local councils updated on, for example, TRAs that they attend, and the outcomes from that? Because in our ward we have many in Chaucer, and we try and attend all of them as councillors, but I haven't had a situation, and I don't know, Pascal, if you have, where the RSO has attended but we haven't, and then we've had feedback from the RSO as to what the issues were and all that stuff. I don't know if there's like an engagement plan around that.
So, to my knowledge, in terms of the specific circumstance that you raised, an RSO it then going to provide you the minutes or feedback in terms of what has been raised in a TRA meeting. But that's why I do believe it's quite important and quite pertinent that all ward councillors have a relationship with the tenants and residents association in their ward, because there are times where I can't make the meeting, but I've asked the chair and the secretary to forward me both the minutes, the action points, and things that they would like to raise with me as a ward councillor. So an RSO kind of sits outside of that sort of relationship. Your relationship with your RSO is more about how is the estates in general, as opposed to the inner workings of the tenants and residents association. But I know that in some instances there can be some overlap in terms of the award of some level of CGS, and you need to get some level of approval or some casework that may be raised, which you need your RSO to get involved in.
Thanks, Reggie. I mean, actually, I focused on TRAs, but I actually meant it as a wider question. So the RSOs go and spend a lot of time in the estates, knocking on doors, telling people off for being loud or whatever it is.
but without us proactively going to them to find out what's been up in the estates that we manage, that we look after or we represent. It would be great if there was some sort of regular feedback, once a month, once a quarter, just saying, oh, in Chaucer, the RSOs have done X, Y, and Z. These are the main issues on these estates. I mean, obviously we should know that too, but I don't know, it'd be good.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that, especially for new councillors, that there is a fantastic working relationship between the councillors and the RSO. I know that loads of RSOs, especially in my ward and my former ward, were proactive in terms of asking for meetings, but that shouldn't preclude you from asking for regular meetings. Once a month, once a quarter, to find out what the pertinent issues are in the estate or street. So please just email them, and I know that they will be enthusiastic to have those update meetings with you. And if there are issues or queries, of course, contact me or contact Abby. In terms of that, we want to ensure that that ward councillors are empowered to be as effective and involved in their estates and streets as much as they possibly can. There is a wider strategy about rebuilding that trust, and partially that is the involvement and work of ward councillors as well. And we want to ensure that we support you as much as we can.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just quickly add to that. We have recently reviewed the estate inspection process. So you would have noticed that we now invite routinely all the ward councillors. We didn't used to do that. And one of the things the officers will now be doing, in addition to inviting you, is sending you the estate inspection report going forward. So you have a copy, you will have a copy of the report of the issues on the estate, whether or not you attend the estate walkabout. That's not being implemented yet, but that's the plan. And you should be getting it from some. Some have been very proactive and they have already started doing it. We have not implemented the new estate inspection process, but that's to come very soon.
We've got a full-time job there during working hours.
Okay, it's getting late. We need to move to item 6 and have a 10 minutes break. But I saw Councillor Andy wanted to make a question. Could you be very brief, please?
Okay, yeah, I'll be really brief. So, having done this job for 40 years before I retired, I continue to kind of feel the pain of the housing staff, and I continue to worry about the staffing capacity. So there's other inner London authorities that have got a C1 rating, and I'd be interested in. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'd be interested in how our staffing resources compare to those other authorities that have got a better rating. I completely get Hakeem's point that we've got a fixed budget, but the report gives no sense about how we're going to switch staffing resources. So we obviously need to switch staffing resources to things like major works contract management. As you told us, that there's no magic extra money going to come through. So how are we going to switch? How are we going to get staff into those kind of vital activities?
Thank you for that, Councillor Bates. I can tell you that we're not under resourced. We relatively employ more staff than those authorities with a C1. Yeah, what we need to do is be more efficient in the way that we work. And I'm not saying that we should necessarily reduce headcount, but we need to make sure that the numbers we have are applied appropriately and delivering services to our residents in the way that our residents would like for those services to be delivered. But I have seen no indication whatsoever that staffing resource is a problem in achieving quality of service.
Thank you very much. Thank you, officers. You don't need to stay for item 6 unless you wish to. We'll have a 10 minutes break. We're back at 1:15. Thank you. We'll now move to item 6, work program for 2026-2027. The purpose of this item is to consider and suggest potential scrutiny topics for inclusion in the annual work program. The work program is to be agreed in October for the reasons set out in paragraphs 4 to 7 of the report. Essentially, this is to enable consultation with officers and executive members on the proposed topics, so that we have all relevant information to factor into the prioritization of the work program. We do, however, need to think about items for the October meeting. So we will need to discuss potential items for the October meeting to enable Adam to follow up with officers as appropriate. If any member has suggestions for the Commission work program, please raise your hands and I will come to you. If there is a specific reason why they should be discussed in October, please explain clearly why. Other members may then wish to respond or comment. Please direct your comments or questions through me, please. Okay, let's start with Councillor Stephanie.
So, thank you, Chair. I think it would be really helpful, given that we've heard today that the Council House Investment Programme is going to go to December Executive, and I'm really in favour of pre-scrutiny, because I sometimes think that pre-scrutinising things can actually lead to better decision making. So I was wondering whether we could, in October, pre-scrutinise the Council House Investment Programme. I think given what we've heard tonight about the finances of the Council Housing Revenue Account, the capital programme in light of the stock condition survey, all of that, I think it'd be really helpful to do that. And I think us as a committee, a commission, actually giving some pre-scrutiny and giving some recommendations could actually strengthen the final report that goes to executive.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Andy Bates. No? Okay, I saw everyone raising their hands together. Okay, Councillor Lee.
I said earlier, Chair, thank you very much. One thing that I'd be very keen to hear about is on progress on voids and the voids improvement plan, and just thinking that would be a good subject for us to discuss, perhaps obviously at the October meeting, but obviously ongoing for the year as a programme, because it's so key. On an issue that Councillor Crine spoke about, in terms of what's coming up, would we have an opportunity to discuss the allocations policy and its implementation is a question. I don't know how the timings work with the forward plan.
I think Reggie said it was September.
September, okay.
Said, yeah.
I'll take that off then. Thank you.
Councillor Pascal.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm in agreement with Lee. I think we should look at the voids improvement plan, and I agree it could be a whole year thing, you know, because I think Ryan suggested that there'll be a backlog first, so we need to get to a realistic stage before we're properly scrutinised. We can scrutinise the backlog as part of that, because obviously, yeah. The other thing that I'm keen, and I mentioned it when I spoke earlier, I'd like to look at our estate maintenance in some capacity. Like I'd like to make it quite a long term, possibly across the year. You know, and speaking with Abby's team, Ryan's team, and then looking at potentially, you know, investing in the residents and doing like a proper door knocking, like a more kind of, like a really deep dive with the residents, because we get a lot of stuff at TRA meetings and in casework. Also, my residents like borough estates, and somebody else might like an estate in Peckham that we might want to go and see. So I think sharing good practice across estates, and then, you know, working with the RSOs then to see like this, you know, so maybe making it a wider project, and that would bring in some of the efficiency of service that Hakeem was mentioning at the end there, where we're visualising the good practice, the efficiency will come in. I think that'd be quite nice. But.
Yeah, instead of waiting the residents to come to us, we go and we do the research. I like this idea. Okay. Next is Councillor Felix.
My suggestion, which I think I could probably put on hold because I need to investigate it further with Hakeem and the team, is just around new council homes and the I wouldn't say explosion, the significant number of student-related PBSAs that are coming up in Chaucer and around that area that are perhaps a way of developers not necessarily contributing to pardon? Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. Then that's why I wanted to. That's why I was going to shoot it. Okay. Good. Well, I'll trust our colleagues at OSC to do their bit. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah. Thanks.
Councillor Janice White.
I didn't have my hand raised.
I have a list, actually. Some of them were mentioned already. Housing revenue account sustainability, repairs, dump, mode review. You already mentioned void performance, state management review, resident engagement and governance, allocations policy, readiness for reinspection by the regulator, major works, particularly Chilton Grove, Canada State, Devon Mansions, Kirby State, and Arica House. Council engagement with TMOs, temporary accommodations, heating, lifts and security doors. They mentioned that they are on top of lifts and security doors, that they are working, but that's not what I've been hearing from the residents. And that's it. Thank you. Councillor Stephanie.
Thank you. I also have the HRA recovery plan. I think that'd be really helpful to come here, and the repairs improvement plan. But I think it would also be quite helpful to have an update on Plentific, because I think in November, so not in October, but in November, that been running for a year. And I do think it's important to have regular updates, because there is a cost to the HRA on that as well, and also a comparison between the standard of work and the cost of the work through Plentific compared to the DLO as well. So I think that would be really, really helpful to do. And I think maybe a 1 year report, so maybe I think the year ends up in November, so maybe early in the new year we could have that coming to us as a report.
Councillor Lee.
Thanks again, Chair. There was a lot of talk today about resources and around how well resourced the department is apparently and compared to others, and I don't doubt what was said. I do want us to perhaps review resources, perhaps thinking what I do know about the pressures that the RSOs are under, and I think Andy touched it before, and Andrew and a number of people in this room did mention that. In the Good Landlord Plan, there's plenty of other work that RSOs are going to have to do around antisocial behaviour, around a lot of tenancy audits, the estate inspections, the surgeries, etc. And I also, having just had a clinical look at things, have seen how many properties that they currently manage on their patches now. I just think that us perhaps having a review of resources, how perhaps resources are deployed, and making sure that we think about our staff welfare is really important in order for staff to be able to perform a job well, they spoke about the Councillor Papula and Hakeem spoke about the away day that they had with staff and about the good people there. We want to keep people well. We want to keep people healthy. We want to make sure that people are well enough and are there to be able to provide good services to residents. As we know, everyone does want to provide a good service. This is why they go into housing. They want to provide good services, but we do need to think about how resources operate. I think if it could form part of our remit, and think about making sure that the well-being's there, because it is a concern of mine whether those resources are adequate.
I agree, and I would suggest as well we do a benchmarking to get best practice from areas in Southwark or from other boroughs that are doing well. There must be a way of getting inspired and comparing what we do with other people, what other people do. Councillor Pascal, please.
Yeah, you mentioned councils and TMOs, and I was going to flip it the other way, your TMO to council, so maybe look at the both, because yeah, I think the working relationships need to be looked at. But yeah, it's just an idea. But I think there's quite a lot there we've already done.
Okay, now Andrew, please.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you, everyone. But where I want to come from is how we tie it up and reduce the workload on all the elected members and officers, because part of what Councillor Hammer was referring to, it's the outcome of repetition. So what they do in practice is signposting. So when they were trying to explain that, the RSOs who are the front line, they're quite resourced. So they end up being the de facto admin for the other services. You understand? So which is why you don't get the outcome you want, which is completing the job first time right. You understand? So that means that it's going to be repetitive. And then everything breaks down because you're getting secondary, tertiary information. So there is something that happens on every estate. If you go on every estate, you find notice boards. And on those notice boards, you find this chatter from the cleaning and arboricultural team. Maybe in relation to what you asked for earlier on before they left, which may satisfy the frontline way of doing things, is asked for as an addendum to the good landlord plan, a chatter from landlord services, which gives you that bullet point that actually this is what we are supposed to expect from our team, the good landlord services. The other team, team that are supporting the landlord services like SASBU and repairs and stuff, because when you get a repair, when a job is raised, there are sometimes follow-on works. So those follow-on works generate variations, and those variations are where the snacks come from. Okay, so you get, I don't know if you know the design of a one-bedroom flat or a bed sit. When you get variation for 20 ball valves in a bed sit, you straight away know that that's a little bit strange, but nobody queries that. So that's why you get that black hole. But the frontline RSO doesn't necessarily know any of it because they're agnostic to all of that. It just goes through their head. So somebody's waiting for it, and guess what happens? You elected members get brought into the frame because they're saying, oh, I'm still waiting, because nobody reports it back. Remember, there was an initiative about 2022-23 to report on site, from any operative that arrives there, that if there's another trade required, that should be implemented straight right there. The information is there, the policy is there, but for some reason, officers are not able to get it. So maybe we ask for that chatter, let them give us their bullet point, like this is what we expect and you should expect from us. not the bit about the survey. Because I guarantee you, this time next year, we come back and we're still going around the same thing. And I really don't want to be polishing my or regrowing my afro based on that. You understand? So, but if I'm going to contribute anything to that, that is where I think we can actually hold them to account, because everything you're saying, it's very good. But how do we actually get them and be able to measure it? That will help us.
Yes, there is a line on 61 here, cleaning service level agreement, SLAs. We need to have these SLAs to make them accountable for the deliverables, level of service, what we expect.
So cleaning has got it. Sorry, Chair. Cleaning has got theirs. They are on the environment, I believe. They're not on the housing. So we need one for housing that we can actually hold them accountable for, and measure it. Sorry, I'm rambling on.
There is another, sorry.
An equivalent of the cleaning for the RSOs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is another line here, 114, where they say they hired Hamilton Mercer to do a customer excellence training program. So they do have people working on customer service training. So it might they should be thinking about SLAs and targets. That's a good thing to add to our agenda. Yeah. Is it Councillor Pascal?
I really like Andrew's suggestion because it can incorporate some of the well-being elements that you were talking about as well, because the RSOs do a hard job. It is a hard job. You're the middleman, and you've got your management coming at you, and you've got your residents coming at you, and you're fighting to resolve all the issues. So it is a really hard job. But so I think we could address both those issues. We could get the satisfaction of the well-being for them, but also they could, even anonymously, some of it they could be quite explicit about what the job does to us. It doesn't have. It can be quite a deep, as I said earlier about the residents, a deep dive. But if you do, we can really get to the bottom of what they struggle with. Because I think it's really important, because it's really important to residents like yourself, Andrew. But it's also really important to the council that they're addressing the right things. So I think that's really nice idea.
And there is another idea that they can explore, to get someone as on research from the moment there is a complaint, who picks up the complaint, what happens, and follow it until the repair is delivered, so we can see what's the process, what's not working. Someone in person to watch. This worked for Visas to manage expectation for Visas. They observed what were the problems, and then they fixed it. Now it's not a problem anymore. So it's a way of.
So I think this is building into a really sort of interesting piece of work, and I think that some parts of scrutiny, we shouldn't always just do scrutiny in the town hall actually, and we could go out and about, and if we had things that do come to certain meetings, because there are things we want to know about that have an underlying, what is the resident journey, as Pascal and Lee have been saying around things, we could actually do that and take that on the road and do that as well. So you don't have to just sit in this room and scrutinise, actually. We could do something. I remember when I was first elected and Councillor Ali was chairing the education young people scrutiny, and she did scrutiny in a day, and she took it out of the town hall, and there was some really good things. And from that, we could do a really deep dive, as you said, and do a piece of work that runs throughout the year, and then come up with some really good, meaningful recommendations.
Councillor Felix?
Thank you. And to build on that, I suppose, given that in Chaucer anyway, we are attending all of the residents' associations meetings, we can combine those two things perhaps, and then enfranchise the residents to help us with the scrutiny effort, and then if we can work out how best to use that, then we can get regular touch points, and then we can have our own information to bring to these meetings perhaps. I don't know what that would be, but
Councillor Janice?
Just to add to that, there was the point about the residents board, which did have a scrutiny aspect to it. So yeah, and I really love that suggestion of getting out of the town hall and into the estates and the.
Andrew, please.
Yeah, just so Stephanie, stop reading my notes.
I didn't read your notes.
So the scientific and the mystery shop bit. So that was just to confirm that's what you're saying. So we may be able to incorporate mystery shopper into it to tie up into. We talk about engagement, but we don't have creative ideas new ones to make people feel motivated that, oh, this is something new, rather than just coming to meetings, or going to do your usual estate inspection, things like that. So in another borough that I worked in, when I had my afro, what happened was we used to really time our reports to when we members. Lee, you remember one of this. So if ward councillors are coming to your area office, you have to make sure that all your paperwork and everything is up to date. And so that, in effect, kind of created this cycle of efficiency that you don't want to let the team down. So sometimes when I'm listening to some of the officers, so that practical experience seems to not be there. I'm not saying they're not doing the job, but I think having a creative way of looking at stuff. Because I remember one time when the chair of this body ran about early 1999. Yes, I am that young. Was coming to our area office, and I think that was the first time and last time we ever got 100%. In those days, we were generic. We got 100% on everything because nobody wanted to let the site down. So if you imagine the caliber of people we had then, if I said the chair of housing scrutiny was coming, I don't want the whole group, like Stephanie saying, we're going to have a site visit. That's going to make sure that we did something. And, we say it's a good idea. If we can actually factor it in one way or the other, quarterly, it could be something that we can look at.
Councillor Andy?
Yeah, thank you. I was busy writing down as people were talking. So it's all great ideas, but it's how we shape it. So we've had the Good Landlord Plan today, which is kind of overarching. Councillor Cryan mentioned major works, which is obviously kind of a huge issue for residents. So maybe we could take major works at the next meeting. The meeting after that, repairs, also tie-in voids. The meeting after that kind of brings in the HRA finance, and then we loop back round to the Good Landlord Plan, because there's lots of that kind of process stuff in the Good Landlord Plan. So I think that possibly gives us a roadmap for the next 6 months or so.
Councillor Pascal?
But you haven't mentioned the project. Are you saying we're doing the resident's journey of all those things, or are you saying you haven't mentioned the very important point that the resident made about the RSO, the journey with the resident and the RSO? I think that was like the key point that we were implying with the resident journey. Is that separate to what you've just, because if we're doing the meeting, are we doing the resident journey not in the meetings and then the meetings as you've just said, Andy, or are we doing yeah, I was, because that one didn't come into your factor into your meeting.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, Councillor Mitchell. So it's whether we'd want to kind of do that as a separate meeting. Yeah.
Everton. And it's usually better if we focus on something to improve than looking at too many things, and then so we need it will be a good exercise for when we decide on the work program. Okay. Councillor Felix.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, which is partly why I was saying that if we can combine purposes on something we're already doing, then we can, like the attending TRAs and giving them somewhat the homework, then we can at each session we can bring a little bit of our own research into play that way maybe. So if we're going to cover something specific in the next session, then we go to the TRAs and we say in the next 2 months, 2 meetings, please can you get everything you have on this particular issue? And that would help, and then it wouldn't be extra work for us.
This research that I mentioned, it was done by professionals. They were writing down everything and with employees, and then they would bring in a very professional, organized, structured way. We can do it ourselves, but I don't know if we will have the same, if it will be as strong as if we get professionals to understand this. Is something to bear in mind. Councillor Stephanie.
So we have got precedent on that for a few. When I was, back in 2016, I think it was, when I had the housing brief for the first time, and we were looking at resident involvement, and the Housing Scrutiny Committee at the time, actually one of their recommendations was that the council commission a piece of work to look at resident engagement and what people want and how they would like to engage and things like that. So actually that was a recommendation from that committee. So there is precedent that actually as a committee we can make recommendations. Obviously with recommendations, we're not decision-making body. They would go to executive and the executive would decide whether to accept those recommendations. But there has in the past been times, just to say that what you said, I think it's possible because there's precedent around, yeah, it's happened before, yeah.
Anyone else? Any more suggestions? No? Thank you. It's all noted. Thank you very much for attending this evening and for your contributions. Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.